test flight before the mission.
Testflug überprüfen zu können.
Nevertheless, permission to proceed is granted by Adolf Hitler. A date for the first attack is selected, April 7, 1945. Against a force of 1,300 American bombers and 800 escort fighters, a meager 180 fighters are mobilized for the ramming attack.
Sollte dann die Sache gekrönt werden, aber der Einsatz war, wie gesagt, von vornherein sehr fragwürdig.
At this point, the war had already been lost, and there was little chance of turning it around. It was nothing but sending pilots to the slaughter.
Der ja sowieso gut wie verloren gewesen ist, dass da also kaum noch die Chance bestand, eine Wende zu erreichen.
Elba pilot Heinrich Rossner has initiated the effort with staggering success, ramming the lead element of the 389th Bomb Group. The Palace of Dallas is shattered. The men in the nose section, including Group CO John Herbo, are dead.
What's going on in these unpressurized B-24s is catastrophic noise and screaming and yelling and metal groaning and breaking and violence, total violence.
Only 3 of the 11-man crew managed to escape the doomed airplane. In the deputy lead plane, pilot Walter Kunkel fights to survive.
Immediately, the plane starts in a dive. First Lieutenant Kunkel is using rudder, yoke, anything he could possibly do to fly the airplane.
The Liberator is unresponsive. It continues a slow outside loop.
The airplane is nosing over, creating extensive negative Gs. They are up in their seats, they're out, they're reaching down for the yoke. As the airplane totally noses over, almost fully on its back, pulling negative Gs, huge motions now start breaking the airplane apart violently.
Kunkel's plane disintegrates, but miraculously, Kunkel and his co-pilot, James Tollison, are thrown clear. The group reforms. Perry Sessoms, lead of the High Right Squadron, assumes command. In spite of the loss, the 389th will deliver its bombs on target. But the Germans have more destruction awaiting American bombers further back in the stream. The brutal ramming assault by the Sonderkommando Elba has yet to reach its full fury. April 7th, 1945. Bf-109 pilot Heinrich Hinkel cruises at 32,000 feet. He is a volunteer with Germany's ramming unit, the Sonderkommando Elba. Heinrich Hinkel is one of the few to survive this extraordinary mission.
Permission was given for a free fight. Normally, we always attacked in groups, but now everybody could pick the closest target where he thought he could be successful, and that's how it was done.
10,000 feet below him, he spots the bomber stream. They are B-24s of the 467th Bomb Group. Henkel pushes over into a dive. The vibrating cockpit and whine of the engine may be the last things he ever feels or hears. He picks a target, a B-24 Liberator called Sack Time. They're nearing the target, a munitions factory at Crummell. Nose gunner Joe Flynn readies the bomb release.
It was quiet. It looked like it was going to be a milk run, and then when we hit the IP initial point to do the bomb run, that's when all hell broke out.
Henkel is here. Sack time is here. Henkel will streak in from above, relying on the element of surprise. Then, with total disregard for his own safety, he'll do the unthinkable. Ram the tail section of the B-24, using his wings and propeller like a cleaver.
Beseitigt, dann ist es flugunfähig.
If you take off the tail section, the airplane can't fly anymore. That was the most effective method of destroying the enemy.
An den Gegner heranzukommen.
Henkel streaks in, making constant adjustments to his attack angle and velocity. Aboard sack time, tail gunner Robert Perkins calls out a bandit at 5 o'clock.
My father said, though, he heard a change in his voice, and suddenly he began to shout into the interphone, "He won't turn away, he won't turn away."
Heinrich Henkel closes in at over 400 miles per hour, ignoring the 50 caliber rounds hammering his aircraft. He's fixated on knocking the Liberator that looms before him out of the sky with one savage blow. The radical tactic of ramming had precedent in recent Luftwaffe operations. In 1944, a unit called the Sturmgruppen had embraced ramming, though only as a last resort.
If they weren't able to shoot the bombers down by cannon fire, machine gun fire, they would ram the tail of the bomber and bail out. Their idea wasn't a kamikaze type suicide ramming. It was a ramming so the pilot could get out.
The Sturmgruppen employed specially armed and armored Focke-Wulf 190. But the hundreds of pounds of extra weight rendered them extremely vulnerable to more nimble U.S. fighters. This figured importantly in Hajo Hermann's approach with the Sonderkommando Elbe. Hermann opted for a completely different and much more dangerous tactic. He selected very lightly armored Messerschmitt Bf-109s. The stripped-down 109s could climb much higher than American fighters and then dive on the bomber formations unimpeded.
Und Panzerplatten ausgebaut.
Weapons and armor plating were removed from the normal planes. All we had left was one MG-131 with about 50 shots, so that the airplanes were as light as possible.
So leicht wie möglich waren.
The Sonderkommando Elbe developed 3 unique methods of ramming. Elbe pilots were instructed to use the steel propeller of the Bf-109 to destroy the control surfaces on the tail. They could also ram the wing near one of the bomber's engine. The last, most ghastly method was to swing in from the side and ram the cockpit. The bomber pilots inside would be killed instantly.
Wenn man mit 200 Kilometer Überschuss auf ein Flugzeug stürzt.
When you're closing on an aircraft 150 miles per hour faster than its speed, the question is whether you're going to hit it where you want to hit it. You only have split seconds.
Da hat man nur noch Bruchteile von Sekundenzeit.
It was never intended that the pilot fly home. Bf-109 would not survive the impact. The most an Elbe volunteer could hope for was to somehow survive the crash and bail out. Despite the extreme danger of the tactic, Elbe pilots did not view themselves as suicide pilots or kamikazes.
Die japanischen Piloten
The Japanese pilots had explosives in their airplanes, and with that had to sacrifice themselves. But we Elba pilots use our airplane as a weapon. The Bf-109 and its metal propeller